I've surfed the web. No one has done this before, so it's very much a first for you as it is for me. Like with any idea, you need to first figure out the logistics. And the main question here was, well, how? When you think about it, the best thing to draw on would be a flat surface, obviously. So a plate, right? However, I don't know how to make pottery plates, as I'm more of a cup and bowl sort of person, and this is where my sister steps in to save the day. Thanks, sis. Now, we have 3 plates to play around with. Now, what is the point in doing all this? How did this whole idea, where did it come from? Well, let me explain. So I have 2 main reasons why, and the first reason being this is my attempt at combining 2 of the things that I learned over the course of this year, drawing and pottery. I've only been doing pottery for 1 year, and I started taking my drawing seriously only a year ago. You are welcome to look back on my channel and just see where I started from. A year ago, I really was not good at drawing portraits. I had a lot of trouble with the proportions, and I even made a video of a face drawing challenge I attempted last year. I'll leave a link in the description just so you can gain a context for where I was. Now, I'm saying this to you to inspire you and show that just because you aren't good at something from the start, doesn't mean you don't have potential in it. Recently, I started drawing freehand with pen on paper, and it's crazy because only a year ago, I wouldn't have ever dreamed of drawing any face freehand because it was just so difficult. This past year's journey has made this project possible. The white stuff you saw me paint on the plate is actually called underglaze, which is a watered down pigmented clay. I am just scratching off the underglaze, and this technique is called sgraffitoing. I'll tell you my second reason in a little bit, but this has never been done before. I've surfed the web. No one has done this before, so it's very much a first for you as it is for me. Just so you can understand how experimental this is, I wanted to do something fun with the hair, and you can see that I'm struggling around with the needle tool until I'm like, wait a minute, don't I have this thicker carving tool I could just use? So yeah, we're figuring this out as we go. Now, seeing as this is a very interesting project, of course there are going to be some very interesting challenges and scenarios that we are going to overcome throughout this video. Now I'm using a needle tool, and the clay is really soft, so you have to be mindful when you're carving into your clay, because you could cut through at any moment and your whole piece will just be a goner. It's gone. When you start carving on a plate, you can't go back. You can't erase. And this, I'll be honest with you, like down hard honest, that this whole entire process of drawing on this plate, I'm like, oh, like this is so bad. This is turning out awful. This is so hard. It's gonna look terrible. And as an artist, if you're an artist too, it's kind of like a curse of an artist to beat yourself up during the entire process, and you just don't believe in yourself. And only at the end of the whole drawing are you like, yeah, actually this is not so bad as I thought it was. Now, just so you can get an idea of how uncertain this whole process is, here's a recording I made a day or 2 after I finished carving this drawing. Now, the thing is with this plate is that I have no idea how it's going to warp at all, because clay shrinks. So how are the pieces going to shrink with a portrait on it? I don't know how it's going to look, because, you know, portraits, the proportions are important, and if it starts warping in uneven ways and shrinking, kind of wobbly, I mean, it's really, this is a test. I have no idea how it's going to turn out, and I mean, you always hope for the best, but it could always shrink weirdly, and the face might look weird. At this point, I guess all that there's left to do is to wait it out until this piece is fired, and fingers crossed it turns out all right.
Several days later.
Okay, let's check the plates, because if these are too dry, then we might not be able to carve on them. It'll be like way more difficult. Hang on. Let's check this out. I'm kind of like internally shaking. Hold on. Oh, yes. Wait, I think. Yeah, it's doable. I think so. Wait, let me try sgraffito. Yeah. Yeah, these will be good. Oh, thank God.
Time for plate prep. Has it ever happened to you that every time you pick up a paper to draw or you want to make something, you have this nagging fear in your head that, what if you forgot everything? I don't know why, but this is just happening to me every time. When I took this plate, I was just looking at it and trying to figure out the proportions, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, you know? And it's really weird. The proportions on this guy were really, really hard. It was difficult because he had this upturned face angle, and it was a little, you know, the face itself was just cut off because that was the type of photo it was. And so I ended up having to improvise and add the rest of the chin later and more of the hair, and you'll see that later how we do that. If you're curious, the reference photos, all these reference photos that I've been using for these 3 plates have been from Pinterest, and you can check out my Pinterest down in the description below. It's there with my Instagram and TikTok if you're interested, and you can see what inspires me and the photos that I like, and you're welcome to use them too, of course. But I'm just warning you, my Pinterest, oh my gosh, my Pinterest is a piece of work. It really is disorganized, so if you can find anything, you know, congrats. Now, this is the second plate, and just wait until you see the third and final plate coming up next. It's gonna be the biggest one out of these 3. Now, one thing this portrait had was a teardrop running down the face, and in the reference photo, it looked really amazing. It was also one of the reasons why I even chose the reference photo in the first place. It was very emotional, and so I drew it in, but it looks like, you know, here's an example of how things don't always go as you imagine them, because on clay, it looks like it doesn't look right. It looks like an ugly, a worm running down his face. And so how I'm approaching this is to just cover it up with another layer of underglaze. We'll see how that turns out. We'll see if it even covers it up good enough once it's fired, because again, you never know. Time to fill in the background and be experimental, and this time I decided to try some cross-hatching. And what do you think? Do you like how it turned out? I think it turned out alright. I think it turned out nice. I'd say another big challenge of this project overall is the time boundness of it. If the plate is too dry, then you cannot finish your work at another time because it'll just be too difficult to carve on. This whole plate is a one-stop shop, so I can't just take a break in the middle and then get back to it a few days later because it'll just be too dry. And as you remember, we still have another plate coming up, and wait until you see what I came up for it. I'd actually say that this plate is my least favorite out of the 3. Once you finish watching this video, write me which one did you like best. We're starting by prepping our plate to be drawn on, and during this process, of course, I put the underglaze bottle right in front of the camera lens, so, you know, you could see what I was doing that much better. And this is the bigger of the 2 plates you saw before, because this time we're going big or we're going home, and we're not going home, so we're going big. And this is another moment where my incredible filmmaking skills are just shining. But you know, there's 2 learning curves going on here. It's the filmmaking, in addition apparently to the art itself. Now, this one will be interesting because it's a couple, and yeah, we upped our game a little bit on this plate. We were feeling ambitious. Of course, that brought its own amount of challenges with it, as is the usual, especially getting the proportions down on this thing. Here's how I tried figuring it out. And so I put the reference photo on my phone, and tried to scale it up to the size I wanted it to be on my plate. And this was just figured out through trial and error. And I was literally just taking my fingers and basically just measuring the width on the reference photo, like the width of the mouth, and then putting it and kind of scratching the general area onto the plate, and it was nerve-wracking. Now just wait until you see how it's going to look once we start shading in the darkest areas of the drawing. Whoa, it's going to really start coming together. Once you get your proportions down of any drawing that you're doing, I find that it's really helpful to start with just shading in the shadow areas of your portrait, of your drawing. It just makes the drawing suddenly very 3D. What I found really helpful for me is to just squint at my reference photo and identify the shapes that the shadows are making. Just focus on the shadows, get those in the right places, and your drawing, it's gonna get there. It's gonna get there. If you're liking this drawing so far, you'll be amazed when we start drawing in cool designs to fill in the hair and the background. Now, I promised you earlier in the video I'd give you my second reason as to why this whole project came to be and just the why behind it, and it is because pottery has lasted thousands of years. There are artifacts, pottery bowls and cups and jugs that have lasted hundreds, if not thousands of years. And imagine if you could immortalize your drawings that way, because paper kind of disintegrates over time and is more vulnerable, I find, than clay, obviously, because you don't have as many preserved pieces of paper lying around in the ground, right, for like hundreds of years. And imagine if you could just take your drawings and put them on clay and they'll just be buried in the ground, right? And it's gonna be like thousands of years later. It's just so long lasting. And that's a really cool opportunity I really wanted to explore. And hopefully, possibly, eventually for you to have an opportunity to have these pieces in your home and to have them passed down generations. For the designs on this plate, the approach was very improvisational. If with the previous drawing or carving or whatever you want to call it, or plate, I had I kind of knew what I was doing before I was doing it. I had an idea in my head before. On this one, I was so focused on getting the couple right and the proportions right that when it came to the hair, these two people are kind of like coming out of shadow. So when it came to the hair in the background, I was like, I didn't even plan for anything. It was just such kind of a funny moment for me, because it's like, yeah, you overthought the entire process except what you really needed to think about, right? You can see me going in with lines, swirls, dots, and I kind of went over a couple times, and I'm making light of this. In the moment, I was actually a little stressed out, to say the least. It was more like, what is going on? Help me. But I just kind of steeled myself, and sometimes you gotta tell yourself, you know what? You can do this. Let's just do this. Wait until you see the end result, though, because I was really surprised by how well it turned out. The lines and it really added so much movement, and it kind of looks like they're either in water or the male and female energies are like coexisting. It's really cool. And usually with drawings, when you darken an area of your piece, you end up having to go around the rest of your drawing and darkening certain dark spots that need to be darker, just to create this golden balance between dark and light. Yes, that looks so good. I was worried about how this would warp, but it turned out really even, so I'm really happy about that. Our plates have officially come out of the first firing, yay! Now wait, don't freak out now that you're seeing me paint this weird green goop on it. This is actually glaze, and it's a sealant layer that we're going to, after painting it on the plates, we're gonna stick it back in for a second firing, and it's gonna end up looking like clear glass. Now, what's even the point in having art on plates? Where can you even use these? And I've been doing some brainstorming, and here are some ideas that I've come up with. Since art on plates, the main pro of it all is that it's more element resistant, so it's fire resistant, waterproof. You can hang it in wet environments such as bathrooms. A lot of times you are kind of worried when you hang like original art in bathrooms and wet environments like that because, you know, you don't want to ruin the piece. But with these plates, it would be totally safe. You know, it's plates, you know, they're waterproof and it's totally fine. Now, that also frees up several other possibilities, like it could be hung outdoors, right? Element resistant. Imagine your sitting space outside and it'll just really elevate the space. So definitely a sphere that I would love to explore and take you along with the journey. Write me a comment and let me know if you have any other ideas on where to place this art.